I made someone feel uncomfortable, and it made me uncomfortable as well. And I wrote about it. I arrived a little early, but still had been in a rush. My day hadn't decided what it was going to be yet. The car dealership was in that kind of morning also. The room was calm. The TVs were at a soft volume. People sat with their coats still zipped, as if they might stand back up at any moment and leave. You can feel mornings like this when everything is technically open, but nothing has fully begun. Shortly after I sat down, my phone was about to die. I hadn't charged it the night before. My battery showed red at 2%, and for a second, I considered keeping it on anyway, stretching the last few minutes. Instead, I turned it off. I put it in my pocket, and it no longer asked anything of me. I knew the car wouldn't take much longer. Knowing that didn't make the waiting easier. It did, however, give the waiting an edge, a sense that it was supposed to be brief, which somehow made each minute more noticeable. I shuffled through some magazines on the table nearby. The stack was thin, with free publications that I knew were not interesting and mostly ads. None of them offered a place to rest. I chose not to pick one up. So I sat. At first, I did all that I could think to do. I looked around, I saw a stand-up video game and walked over to it, but soon realized it wasn't working right, so I sat back down. I now noticed that the coffee machine made a low, constant sound like it was thinking. Someone shifted in their seat, and the fabric of their jacket sounded sharper than expected. After a while, my attention loosened, and my thoughts started to drift. Not to anything specific, my mind just stopped holding on. It wasn't really daydreaming. There was no scene or story. It was more like drifting. The way the mind moves when it isn't being guided. Thoughts came and went without staying long enough to announce themselves. My eyes were open. They had to be pointed somewhere. They settled straight ahead, toward the person sitting across from me. I wasn't looking at them, not really. My eyes were just resting there. I wasn't studying their face or their clothes. I couldn't have described them afterwards. They were simply where my gaze landed while my attention was elsewhere. At some point, they noticed. It wasn't dramatic, no sharp glance back, just a small change, a shift in posture. They leaned back slightly and returned more deliberately to their phone. The movement carried a message without words. I understood it immediately. I looked away. There's a particular kind of embarrassment that arrives when intention doesn't matter, when what counts is how something appears. I felt it then, a mild heat, becoming aware of my eyes as something that could cause discomfort even when they weren't trying to. Time passed, or maybe it just continued. Without meaning to, my gaze drifted forward again, the same direction, the same neutral line through the room. Again, I wasn't looking for the person. Again, they were there. Again, a subtle glance from the person, a tightening, a return to the phone. It felt strange how unnatural it was to force my eyes elsewhere. Looking down at the floor felt performative, as if I were making a point. Fixing my attention on a wall felt equally strange. Looking straight ahead seemed like the most ordinary thing a body could do, and yet it was the one thing that felt least allowed. There was a quiet discomfort between us, shared but unspoken, not anger, not fear, just the awkwardness of two people aware of each other without having a way to acknowledge it. If the person was a friend or even acquaintance, something simple could have been said lightly without consequence, but we didn't know each other. Between strangers, explanations like that don't exist. They arrive too late or too early or not at all. To speak would have made the moment heavier, not lighter, so we stayed silent, each of us managing our own side of the space. I became aware of how much effort goes into appearing neutral, how much work it takes to seem harmless, How many small adjustments we make without thinking just to keep things smooth? Eventually, I turned toward my wife and started talking, not about anything important, just something nearby. Her voice gave my attention a place to land, something specific to hold. The room softened again, the tension thinned. A few minutes later, our name was called. The waiting ended the way waiting usually does, abruptly and without acknowledgement. We stood up, gathered our things, stepped out of the room. Nothing had happened really, and yet something had. For a brief stretch of time, looking without looking had been enough to make another person uneasy. Enough to make me aware of my own presence. Enough to show how easily attention, when it has nowhere to go, can become visible. Outside, the air felt fresh. The day had moved on. The moment, not completely forgotten.